You've passed your driving test and you're thinking about driving on your own for the first time. This can be daunting for many new drivers. So in this video, I'm going to give you some tips which will hopefully help you feel more comfortable. Firstly, can you drive directly after passing the driving test? Well, yes, you can. Even though you don't have your photo card full driving license on you yet, you do have a pass certificate. Keep that in the car because that can be used as proof that you've passed the driving test. Also, your car must be legal. It must be taxed. It must have a valid MOT and it must be insured. And if you've been driving it with your provisional license, you need to contact your insurer to tell them that you've passed and you now have a full license, because that is going to change the policy. And it's also likely to change the price and you're going to have to pay the difference. And it's probably going to be more. However, I don't recommend driving directly after passing the driving test because emotions are going to be high. And this is why it's very likely your driving instructor will drive you away from the driving test centre even if you've passed, because you're unlikely going to be focusing on the road much. You're going to be thinking about what's just happened. Some people are so overwhelmed, they're not even aware of their surroundings. They're thinking about who they can message on this thing and where they're going to post that photo of them passing. Yes, I do get customers who are a little less overwhelmed, maybe to the point where the other extreme, they're just like, good, that's that done. What am I having for dinner tonight? Okay, they can probably drive straight away, and most people are somewhere between those two extremes. But whatever you do, before you get behind the wheel and start driving, make sure you've calmed down, make sure you can focus. Having said that, don't leave it too long. After you have passed your driving test, try to drive as soon as you can. After you've calmed down, get behind the wheel if you can, preferably the same day or the next day. Don't leave it months. It surprised me how quickly people lose their skill and lose their knowledge after they've passed their driving test if they don't practice it. Because when you pass your driving test, you haven't been doing it long. It's in your short-term memory. And unless you practice, you're going to lose it fairly quickly. People can go years without driving and then get back into it easily, but they've been driving for years first, so it's in their long-term memory, so the big gap doesn't matter as much. But if you passed your driving test and you leave it a few years, in my opinion, you probably shouldn't have a driving license. It's one of the flaws we have in our system. I'm going to use my other half as an example. I have plenty of other examples where people have passed their driving test, gone to university or something, haven't driven for years, and then wanted to drive and have needed refresher lessons. But the joke is they're not really refresher lessons, they're more like beginner lessons because they forget what to do. My other half was the same. She passed the driving test when she was 18 in Poland. That's as early as you can pass it in Poland. And she went to university and she didn't need to drive, and she come to the UK and we had been together for a while, and now she's 31. This was 2 years ago. And we're thinking, you really need to get a car because of where she goes to work, etc. Anyway, details. We got her an easy to drive, cheapish car, and she couldn't drive it. No idea. I had to sit with her for I think about 3 months until she had the confidence to drive on her own. And this is why it's a flaw in our system that you can pass your test, not drive, and leave it as long as you like before you start driving, because by that time, well, my other half at least, she shouldn't have had a driving license. Luckily, she was sensible and she wasn't going to try driving on her own where she would be dangerous. She was actually getting help to help her get back into it again. So the easiest time to start driving after your driving test is as soon as you can after your driving test. The longer you leave it, the harder it's going to get. P-plates. They do work in my experience. You can use them after your test. You don't have to, but you can if you like. And you can use them if you've taken a break from driving and you're just feeling a bit nervous as you get back into it. However, when you have finished with them, take them off. I'll leave a link in the description to some if you're interested. The reason why it's important to take them off if you've finished with them, or if you're driving somebody else's car that has P plates and you're not a beginner and you are a confident driver, take them off. The reason why you want to take them off is because we want them to stand out. We want the people who need the P plate to be noticed. And if everyone just started leaving their P plates on because they wanted people to be more patient towards them, well, the P plate would have less validity. People won't notice it as much and therefore they won't really work. But at the moment, P plates do work. In my experience, when a driver sees someone driving with a P plate, they're much more likely to give them space and be patient, and much less likely to start honking the horn and give them aggro. There is an argument that people with L plates or P plates are attacked, but in my experience, that's the minority. I was going to say not true, but it's not untrue. It can happen. There are some drivers out there who are more aggressive towards learners and new drivers, but that's the minority. The majority of drivers will be more patient. Before you drive your car, familiarise yourself with where the lights are. Headlights, full beams, fog lights, also your windscreen wipers, where the hazard light switch is, your climate control, your demisters. Just familiarise yourself with the controls, because when you're on the move, that's not the time to do it. And being able to do these things easily and quickly will make your life easier and also make driving safer. Make sure your car is reliable. It's no excuse to say, I know nothing about cars, I'm not going to look under the bonnet. There's basic things you can do, and you've learnt this when you did your driving test. You can make sure the coolant is between the min and max, fill it up with screen wash so you know you can clean your windows, you can check your oil and your brake fluid as well between min and max. If you struggle to see it there, you can shine the light on it and that will show the fluid. But also you can check for really basic, obvious things, even if you know nothing about cars. If you see a belt, like there's a belt here, there shouldn't be cracks in it. Look around the connections. Is there any leaking fluid? And oil should be on the inside of the engine, not the outside. So if you see any leaks or any kind of moisture on the outside of the engine, you need to get it checked out. Dirt is fine, like this is dirty. This is just road dirt. But oil leaks and water leaks, get them checked out as soon as you can, because a reliable car is not only going to help you stay safe, but it's going to give you confidence as well. Also, check your tyres. You should have learnt that when you did your driving test as well. No cuts or bulges. Try and feel around it with your hands to feel if there's any bulges on the other side of the tyre, and you can measure the tread depth too. There's a cheap tool you can buy. I'll leave a link to it in the description. And of course, make sure your tyres are at the correct pressure. I use this gauge. I'll leave a link to one in the description. And don't set the tyre pressures based on the number written on the side of the tyre. That's actually a fairly common mistake. The number on the tyre itself is just the maximum pressure that tyre can handle. You want the correct pressures for your car, and you can usually find them either in the door jamb when you open the door, or behind the fuel filler flap, or failing that, look in the owner's manual, it should be in there. But having your tyres at the correct pressure for that vehicle will make driving safer. If you're not used to a car, there is a way you can get used to the pedals quickly. Bear in mind, the pedals are going to vary in sensitivity from car to car, as is the steering and the gear stickers as well, but the pedals usually seems to be the main thing that makes people feel nervous. This is what I usually actually do with my pupils. I take them somewhere quiet car park like this. Usually, to be fair, I do it on a quiet road, but not a hill. And then I just get them to start and stop on my command regularly in close succession. And you'll be surprised if you do this, how quickly you'll get confident at moving the car and stopping the car. Not only confident, but quick and smooth. This is how it usually goes down. I'll get them to get the gear, so clutch down, first gear, foot brake on, handbrake off. And then I'll usually tell them, I'll make sure it's safe before you get going. Don't worry about observations, but obviously if you're doing this yourself, make sure you're checking to make sure it's safe. At the moment, I'm in a car park. There's a fence behind me and either side of me and a wall on this side. So I think I'm all right. I'll do one look anyway, but once I get going, I'm not going to keep looking. So I'll tell them, you ready to go? I want you to go and then stop when I tell you to stop on my command. Are you ready? Okay, so ready, set, go, stop. Oh, that was harsh. Right, we'll try again. Go again. Stop. Go. Stop. Go. Stop. Keep trying. Go. Stop. Right, now just slow yourself down a little bit and do it again. So go. Stop. Okay, that's better. Go. Stop. And doing that for 10 minutes, it works wonders. I mean, I've been doing that, 30 seconds, but 10 minutes of that with a pupil, and they are moving and stopping, I wouldn't say like an expert, but confidently, quickly and smoothly. So when they are on the road and they are driving, when they want to go, they can go. And when they stop the car, they don't get that horrible jerk. And if I am in a car park and I run out of space, well, that's an ideal time just to introduce them into going backwards a little bit. And when I say introduce them into reversing, I really do just mean introduce them. If I'm teaching them how to move and stop smoothly, they're probably quite an early learner. So learning reversing at that stage probably isn't going to be the best use of their time. But as we've got to go backwards, that's a good time to teach them how to select reverse on the gearbox. I will most likely do the pedals and I'll move them back whilst they look at their mirrors and use the steering so they can see how the steering affects the car on the way back and how they can see that in their mirrors. But even if you've passed the driving test, starting and stopping the car many times in quick succession can get you used to that car in little time. I even do it to this day, but not to that level. What I do when I get in a car I'm not used to, so I'll get the gear, get the handbrake off, and I'll feel the gas. Oh yeah, that's what it's like. And then I'll start to feel the clutch. Aha, there it is. That's what it's like. And then I'll just go a little bit and I'll start using the brakes. I don't want to be using the brakes for the first time. When I'm approaching something I need to slow down for, I'm going to test them first, see what they're like. And when I've done that a few times, just like that, that's all it will take. And then I have confidence to know how the car is going to handle and I can get going. When I was a new driver, I had a Vauxhall Astra car and I was very used to that. And I remember an occasion where I had to drive a Citroen Berlingo van and I didn't test the brakes. I was driving along, I needed to slow down or I was going to drive into the back of a car, press the brake pedal and nothing happened. And I panicked, braked harder and to my relief, the van stopped. But it did make me nervous. There's actually another occasion I can think of as well when I had to drive a Skoda Fabia, 2002 I believe it was, Skoda Fabia. Quite a new car at the time and the brakes were the other way. I pressed the brake just a little bit and I was launched forward in my seat. So that taught me that before I need the brakes, just test them first, and that's what I recommend you do. Just have a feel of them before you actually need them so you can see how sensitive they are, because they vary greatly from car to car. That way you have a heads up and you know what to expect. When you drive your car for the first time after passing the driving test, you don't have to do it alone. In fact, I don't recommend it. I recommend you take someone with you who you trust is going to help with your confidence and help you drive safely. Maybe the person who supervised you when you were learning to drive, if you were lucky enough to have someone to do that for you. What I don't recommend doing is taking a group of loud friends, a group who may be a bad influence. Maybe you will succumb to some peer pressure and do something that's not safe. I don't recommend taking a large group of people in your car, particularly if you think they may be a bad influence, until you have the confidence to do what you think is right and ignore advice that you know is not sensible. On the subject of not being pressured by others, the same is true for other road users, not only other people in your car. If someone behind is following closely and wanting you to go faster, only go as fast as you feel comfortable. If you're waiting to pull out of a junction and someone flashes their lights to let you go, don't rush. Still check it's safe and do it in your own time. Part of learning to drive is learning to make your own decisions and only go when you feel it's safe. Not to be directed by other people, not to rely on other people to make decisions for you. If you're following a cyclist and they're waving you past but you can't see it's safe, don't go until you do see it safe. Because if you were to go and were to cause an accident, doesn't matter that they're waving, you're driving, you are responsible. You have to make your own decisions. Keep your first trips to areas that you're familiar with. That way you can focus more on driving and less on where you're going. But even if you do know where you're going, I recommend putting the route in the sat-nav, because that can be just a bit of extra confidence to back you up that you're going where you want to go. But more importantly than that, if you say get the wrong lane and go the wrong way, the sat-nav is there ready to reroute you and direct you where to go. So it's less of a stress for you. Also, it's good advice to keep your first trips to off-peak times when it's quieter, because when it's quieter, it's easier, even for an experienced driver. Try to follow the advice your driving instructor has given you. It's all too common to hear that you pass your driving test and then you learn to drive, but that's simply not true. You learn to drive, then you pass your driving test, and then you get better at driving. And as you get better at driving, your methods will likely change. My methods that I use when I drive aren't always the same as the methods I use to teach my pupils, because my pupils are new drivers. They have low skill. So I have to teach them low skill methods. As they get better at driving, and after their driving test and when they've been driving for years, their skill is going to improve. And then they're going to be able to use higher skill methods. But that doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen the moment you pass your driving test. That takes months and years of practice. Try to make sure your priority is safety. Listen to the advice your driving instructor has given you, try to follow it, but understand as you get better and your skill gets higher, your methods will likely change. For your first few trips, I don't recommend having anywhere to go, because that place that you're going to is going to put you under pressure. You likely got to be there at a certain time. It's likely going to dictate what time you're driving. That may be a busy time, and it's also going to choose what route you need, and that may not be an ideal route. For your first few trips, drive for the sake of driving. Choose the route, choose the time, and don't be under pressure. Try not to listen to loud music, because that can distract you, make it harder to control the car, and you won't hear sirens coming. Also, when you do start to get more confident and start to venture into places that you don't know, remember to follow road signs and markings, because when you're driving in familiar areas, it's easy to forget about road signs and markings because you know the area. You don't really need the signs. You know there's a zebra crossing, you know there's traffic lights, you know you need that lane to go that way on that roundabout. But when you're in places you don't know, that's when the road signs and markings can help you. They can give you a heads up and help you stay safe. This bit of advice is for all drivers, not just beginners, and it's advice I give, yet I don't always follow it myself, to my own peril. And that is dress for the weather outside. So often I go to my car thinking it's freezing outside, but it doesn't matter, it's going to be warm in the car. But I have broken down in the snow before, and I was freezing cold for hours waiting for a recovery, yet I haven't completely learnt my lesson. I'm better. I still try to remember, yes, let's bring some warm clothes and some water and food, so if I do get stuck somewhere, I'm going to be comfortable, particularly when I do longer journeys. But make sure you try to do that, especially on long journeys. Expect to break down. It's unlikely you will, but expect to, so that if you do and you are stuck at the side of the road with no heating, because when your engine's not working, your heating's not working, you're going to be comfortable because you've got the right clothes, hopefully some food and water as well. But just because you've passed your driving test, that doesn't mean learning is over. I'm sure your driving instructor would be happy to help you with further lessons after you've passed your driving test, but that is expensive. There is another thing you can do though: research and practice. And what's better about that is you get to research loads of different points of view and then try them out, put them into practice and see how they are, instead of paying one person to give you one point of view. When it comes to improving any skill, you are the person who makes yourself better at it. You can pay someone to help you, but you can't pay someone to make you better. At the end of the day, it's you who needs to do the real work, and you're going to make the real difference. If you found the video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for car insurance, check out the links to Collingwood and Confused in the description. If you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on somebody else's car, then Collingwood are there for you, because you can do so without affecting the owner's policy. And that takes away a big stress from the owner of that car that you're using to practice your driving in. Via the link at the moment, there's up to 35% off and a £20 Amazon gift card. If you want to insure your own car, I recommend checking out the link to confused.com, because you fill out one quote form and get loads of quotes back from many insurers. It's the one I use, and you can change your car on that quote as many times as you like without having to redo the whole quote. So it's a quick and easy way to compare how much it costs to insure different cars. Using the links doesn't cost you anything, but it does support the channel, so thank you very much. Subscribe to get my future videos, and until the next one, cheerio.